This video is only going to be of interest to a very few people, but I wish I'd had a video like this when I was getting into elderberries. Being totally new at growing elderberries, I started a very elaborate experiment for myself, and I'll share that with you. Elderberries are known as immune system boosters, and they really kind of delay and thwart the activity of those so-called viruses that are supposed to be out there creating flus and colds and influenza. And how effective they are really depends upon what kind of berry you're actually getting. Some elderberries are better for jams, jellies, pies. Others are better for giving you the medicinal qualities of the syrup that you would like to have. I discovered right away when they started growing and getting leaves on them that the deer also love them. So I had to put up this deer fence. It is 15 by 70 by 8 feet tall. And it has saved my berries over the last couple seasons. This fence helps immensely to have a door. Yay! These are my ranch elderberries. There will be their third season. I cut them down to the ground in the winter, and this is March, and they're really wanting to come back strong. These are my Bob Gordon. They did well. This is their third year, will be their third year. I cut them back in the winter, all the way to the ground. They're not doing quite as well as some of the others. But these are also the Bob Gordon, and I didn't cut them down to the ground entirely. And you can see that they are doing rather well. These are my Adams 2. This will be their third year. I cut them down to the ground as well, and they are coming out and wanting to proliferate and producing these runners. They look like they're going to do okay. However, these are the same. These are the Adams 2. I didn't cut them completely down to the ground. I left some stalk on them, and they are doing extremely well this way. This is my Adams 2, a runner that was growing outside of my fence, and I dug in the ground, got a big root system out of it, and planted this little guy right here with his root system. But I also took a cane, a cutting from that same plant, and stuck it in the ground, bare, no roots, and he seems to be doing okay as well. This is a second season Pocahontas. I had 3 cuttings. I put them in the ground. None of them survived except this one. And this one's really going to town. And we'll see how well she does. This is an Adams 2 cutting that I just stuck in the ground from my other cuttings last year. And this is its first season. And I put 2 in the ground near each other, and they're both doing well. These are Bob Gordon cuttings that I took off of my plants this fall, winter, and put them both kind of together, and they're doing very well too, just as bare root cuttings. This is the second season for a Marge that I planted last year as a bare root cutting, and it's sprouting all along the area that I left here, and it's got different canes coming out, and they all have buds coming out, and they're also producing from the ground as well. This is a York cutting that I planted last year, so this will be the second season, and it's got some roots down there, and it's producing sprouts that are coming up out of the ground, and it also has these buds that are also coming out now, and this all is in the month of March. Just as an experiment, I took cuttings off of my plants, about 3 or 4 different varieties, stuck them in the ground, and every single one of them is producing buds all along the row. I don't know if you can see them all the way down. These are cuttings out of my garden last year. They're color-coded. Each color represents the type of elderberry that they are, but you can see that every single one of these is doing well. Cuttings that I put in the ground or put in these pots back in January, and this is March. And these I just stuck down. I just stuck these down in this jar with water. That's all. Just an experiment. I color coded my elderberries so I'd know which ones were which when I started putting them in different pots. And to grow them, see, had to know what they were. Can't imagine that this chart I've made would be interesting to a lot of people, but this is my experimental garden plot. This is the fence that I showed you. This rectangle represents the fence line for the deer fence, and it shows what I've planted, and shows lots of good information about this, and I just keep track. I'm just trying to find out what seems to grow best, what produces the best berries. We'll just see how this all turns out. This is my latest update. So I took pictures of this whole process from the very beginning, when I laid down the mulch until later on when I made the fence or built the fence around it. It was my idea to create a situation where I could monitor in my newbie experiences which ones I liked best when it came to elderberries and how well they survived in my garden plot here in Boiling Springs, South Carolina. And there's my fence newly put up, and that's the first season, early spring, and all of these started from simple cuttings, and yet they're growing. And by September of that year, that's what they had done, and they'd already produced all of their berries. I should have taken pictures with all of their berries on them, because in the second year they were producing very well. And I just continued to monitor them and how they went, how they grew, how they responded to the climate conditions. Here's an example of when I put the cuttings in soil in January, and then in March you can see that they're starting to grow. They are just now beginning to develop roots on them, I determined when I started pulling them out of the ground, and they produce leaves first and then the roots second in this situation, and you got to have those roots a-going. I just happened to be in this particular zone. I monitored some of the berries that I was going to be planting. These are the Marge. They're a hybrid. They're American European, and this fellow is showing what those berries look like, and I thought, yeah, I like those large umbrals. And then I just collected a lot of information on Marge and documented that in my PowerPoint, and I'll just continue to watch them. Here's the Marge, and February 23rd of this year, what I was seeing, I'm trying to point out the buds are coming to life in February, and I just showed you what they're like a few minutes ago at this time. And this is the Bob Gordon, and how large the umbrals are there, and went searching and discovering, you know, what kind of plant they were and how well they produced, and showed the Bob Gordon how it was growing just over a month ago, and they were starting to come out. And this is the Marge one season growth from cuttings, just cuttings stuck in the ground. New York, let's see, the York berries, and why I planted Yorks. They come from the Adams, and they're considered to be better a variety than the Adams. Well, that remains to be seen, because I was very pleased with the large umbrals that I had growing on my Adams just in the second year. And so did a lot of investigation, and lots of things that I included for my information in this PowerPoint. And I had 6 runners growing outside of my deer fence, as you can see right there, and they just went underneath the mulch and came out on the other side, and so they were very prolific. And I cut these down, and what I did was I went back in the fence line and dug out the root system there that was coming from the original mother plant, and then I chopped and left only about 1/3 of that root system there, and went and planted it, as I showed you just a few minutes ago. And they're just cuttings right now, but I'm anxious to see how well they do with that root system having been stuck in the ground elsewhere. And this is kind of what they looked like November 9th when I dug them up and planted them. And I don't think this information would be very interesting to a lot of people, but this is stuff that I'm doing just to kind of keep track of my experiment. To me, there's just something about growing elderberries that's fun, and I love to take those elderberries and get them off the off the stems. So just quickly, use your imagination. Imagine having a whole handful or a stem of elderberries. Place them on top of this cooling rack that I bought from Amazon for $20, and have it over a large bucket. And then you simply, with gentle pressure, rub your hand over those berries, and they just drop off right into the bucket. It's that simple. I've designed something that helps me take them off quickly. I've put out a video that shows that, and it's just elderberries are fun, and I make syrup out of that. This is my last syrup out of 3 that I had. I take about a tablespoon, sometimes 2 a day. I had a cold, sore throat, congestion, and it left quicker than I've ever had one leave when I get those stages of sore throat and coughing and congestion, and it goes on for a week or so, and it didn't last that long at all. And I'm assuming it's because of the medicinal qualities of the elderberry syrup that everybody talks about. Well, I looked in my freezer to show you some frozen elderberries, and I've used them all up except these right here, but I freeze them as well as dry. These are the dehydrated ones that I got. I went out before mine started producing and got a bunch on the roadways, and I have so many that I'll have elderberry syrup right up until the time I need to have my own producing again. And what I do is I dehydrate them, and I put them in these bags, and then put them in jars, and then just store them. And they're perfectly good. I like to, when I make them from the dehydrated ones, I like to soak them for a couple of hours before I start cooking them up. And let me include one last thing here. I love cooking my syrup on an induction stove because it is so responsive, so quick to temperature changes that you might want to be monitoring. I also read in research from one of the universities that you need to keep your temperature between 170 and 190 when you're making your syrup. And so I tried to do that, and with the induction stove, it's very, very helpful.